Peter chapter 1, verses 5 through 7. We are in lesson 9 this morning on brotherly kindness. So we will start there in just a second. It's page 61 in your book. Turn there. But first, let's begin with prayer. Bow with me, please. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to you for this Lord's Day morning we can assemble together and open your word and study from it. We thank you for the good night's rest we had this past night. Pray that we might enter this day with renewed energy and resolve to please you and do what is right, seek to know you and understand you. We thank you for revealing yourself through your Son as a perfect example for us. You showed us how we ought to live and treat one another. Us to imitate him and other men and women of faith that we have in your scriptures. We can lay hold of the promise that you've given us, which is to spend eternity with you if we are faithful. Help us to encourage one another toward that end. Be with us as we study this morning. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay. I actually want to start, I do this occasionally and probably should do it more often, but I just want to read the text that our study this trimester is taken from, which is 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 5 through 7. We actually backed up the couple verses before it, and of course read a couple verses after it for the context, but I'll just read verses 5 through 7. It says, "For this very reason, make every effort, be diligent, to supplement your faith with virtue, and virtue with knowledge, and knowledge with self-control, and self-control with steadfastness, and steadfastness with godliness, and godliness with brotherly affection, and brotherly affection with love." So we are on the next to last one, if you want to look at it that way, which my version is ESV transferred. Brotherly affection, brotherly kindness is probably New King James or something like that, same idea. It's a word we're all familiar with. I guarantee if you're from Pennsylvania, you're familiar with it. And what Greek word is it? Actually, two Greek words, but what's the word? Philadelphia. It's actually two Greek words, phileo and adelphos. Phileo meaning love. Take a while, guess what adelphos is? Brother. love of brother. So brotherly love. This fraternal family affection. A couple comments that Heath Rogers makes that I just wanted to bring out. He says it. This is a love that recognizes the difference between the church and the world. Certainly we're to love everything. But there's kind of a special love for those of the house of the faith. He said that love reflects a common goal, a common salvation, a common faith, a common Lord and Master, a common interest. So we have things in common with each other that we don't always have with the world. And so it's a closer relationship. So his first section here is, what is brotherly love? What is brotherly kindness? And that's at least what he had to say. Anybody? I don't want to spend a long time on that, but I'll throw it open to anybody who wants to kind of bring out an aspect or facet of that I'd like to emphasize before we kind of get into applying it. Just let your brains warm up. This is the signal to get my attention. Like this. Okay, so his first section, he just has a subheading of why is brotherly kindness important? The easy answer would be because Peter, being inspired, said it was. And we'll move on. But I think we'll probably spend a little bit more time on it. Let's go to 1 John chapter 4 first. It's hard to talk about love without either going to John or 1 John or maybe 1 Corinthians 13. Which we're not actually going to do this morning, but we are going to go to 1 John chapter 4. I need a volunteer to read verses 20 and 21, please. 1 John chapter 4, verses 20 and 21. David, thank you.
If someone says, "I love God," and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he who does not love his brother, whom he has seen, how can he love God, whom he has not seen? And this commandment we have from him, that he who loves God must love his brother also.
I don't know about you, but I noticed some imperative words in there. It's not optional. What are some words that indicate that this is something we have to do? Okay.
Commandment.
It's a commandment. Okay, so we've been commanded, we've been told you're supposed to be doing this. that's an imperative. What else? There's a couple other things I noticed, besides the fact this commandment, Kenny.
Must.
Use the word must. That sounds like you have to. I think there's one other that I had. Well, yeah. A couple others that I had, actually. Anything else kind of underscore the importance or necessity of it, Al?
Responsibility.
Okay, it doesn't use the word responsibility, but you can certainly read it in there. Straight from the text, what other words indicate that we got to do this?
Well, it says that if you aren't doing this, then you're a liar.
Yeah?
So it has a negative connotation to go with it.
That's pretty strong language. You're a liar if you say you love God and you don't love your brother, you're a liar. And also use the word cannot. If he does not love his brother whom he has seen, he cannot love God whom he has not seen. That's pretty strong language. I'm not going to argue with it, but it's pretty strong language. So we got to do it. It's not optional. Is it easy? No. Some are easier than others. And there are times where it's easier than others. There are times when my wife might say I'm semi-lovable. There's probably other times where I'm not so lovable. Not probably. There are definitely those times. And there are certain brethren that we just seem to find it pretty easy to get along with very well. And some are like, oh, it's work loving that guy or that. So why is that? Why do you think that is? We got to do it, but it ain't easy. How are we going to overcome that? What's the struggle there? Why are some people harder to love? Not us. We're easy to love. I'm talking about other people. What makes us, you know yourself, right? What makes you unlovable or hard to love, hard for other people to love at times? I've got a little bit of a temper sometimes. And that's not very easy to love when you're doing that. What else?
Personalities are different.
I wrote that very word, personality. Yeah, we don't have as much in common with that person. We tend to like different stuff. He's a sports guy, and I'm more of an academic or whatever. I mean, we all got our kind of our areas of interest, right? And sometimes they overlap. Sometimes near the twain shall meet, right? Some people just kind of rub us wrong. I don't know. It's like indefinable. It's just. So we only have to love the ones we get along with good, right? We don't have to love the other ones. That's where it takes the work, right? Everybody can love someone who loves you. Try loving someone who doesn't seem to love you that much. That's work, right? Can this be learned or developed? It's something you can work at and get better at. How do you know?
God tells us.
That's a cop out.
But
Yeah, sure. It's a command that implies that it's something that can be obtained by everyone.
go back a little bit, it's like some people just rub us the wrong way.
Yeah.
Usually, I think, if you talk to that person who rubs it the wrong way or someone else did, you will find that he also rubbed them the wrong way. Both people usually
It
rub
goes
them
both
the wrong
ways,
way.
yeah.
And that's when it's really hard to work out. And sometimes it becomes more difficult rather than a
Yeah.
congregation. And it's very difficult to happen. So I'm grateful when that here.
Do you, just a second, Kenny, I won't forget. Do you think if we work on not rubbing other people the wrong way, that they might rub us the wrong way less? That we might be more lovable and that might help? Kenny, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I don't know if this answers your question or not, but I know that, I think the book brings this out as well, but the other Christian graces that we've gone over that are from this text, applying those into our lives helps us with that, to develop that God-likeness. It helps. And I think that correlates exactly with what you're saying as well. Like, the focus should be on me. Like, I don't like Daniel very much, but it's not Daniel's fault necessarily. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless he's blatantly done something, but it's still something I need to work on. But if I change me, then that relationship can't change.
Work on ourselves first.
Right.
take the beam out of your own eye and
Yes.
work on the speck in his eye. Good. Other comments? I had a couple other things here, but go ahead. Yes.
When I think about love, I think about how Jesus loved unconditionally. Here these people were when he was being crucified, and he still loved them. And then his very last words were, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." So if he can forgive people that are literally there persecuting him and killing him, we can forgive somebody who's maybe rubbed us the wrong way.
Of course, he also, called some hypocrites and whitewashed tombs and brood of vipers. So, does that mean Jesus didn't get along with some people? Jesus knew their heart. Jesus knew what they needed, and that sometimes that's what they needed. I don't read minds, so, elders have some responsibility to make some judgments about that. We generally probably should be a little bit more forgiving, because we don't know what's in their heart. Other comments? Todd?
I think you kind of hit on a good point there. Getting along doesn't mean we're going to let everything go. Sometimes as parents, there's things we have to be very strict on, and these are the rules, and this is what we have to do. We're still going to get along, but there's certain rules we have to follow. The same thing with our brother, and if we're doing things that are not correctly, we need to point that out too as well. We just don't say, I need to get along, so I don't want to say anything. But we need to do that in a loving manner too as well. It's always difficult with people because we all come from different backgrounds and different parts of the country.
Different cultures.
And it's just there's a lot. So first thing, you have to listen more than you talk. That's always the thing when we're dealing with people, because we always want to get out our comment or talk about it rather than listen to what they have to say.
Closed mouth gathers no foot. Think before you speak, or that sort of thing. Yeah. Yes.
Just as a person, everyone has feelings, and
Forget that sometimes, but
I think, in 1 Peter we talk about the brotherly love. You gotta love each other because there's suffering all around the world. Christians suffer, but everyone suffers, and that's a common fact. Is that there's always something in somebody's life that has made life hard for them, and it's not just Christians; it's other people too who need to hear the gospel too. And when you understand that everyone has a story, everyone has something that has driven them down a path, whether it's a good path or a bad path, we need to be sensitive to that and understand that, they may be more broken than we understand, and, they want to understand, but then maybe they just haven't had that environment to understand. And that comes a long way with them, trying to get them to understand and listen to the gospel.
yeah, sometimes we use expressions like love the brother, hate the sin. Certainly we don't excuse behavior that's sinful, but that doesn't mean we don't still love them. We still want what's best for them. What might be best for them is direct honesty with them about their situation, but still let all your speech be seasoned with grace. So we got to be careful how we talk to others.
So, addressing getting along with others, some people rubbing you the wrong way. See if you agree with this statement. Put it back.
I'm a teacher. I'll ask the questions.
I didn't wait till the last minute.
Yeah, it's hit me early this time.
No one can make you mad without
my kids. That's true. They can push your buttons, but it's our job to not have as many buttons and not have sensitive buttons.
You might have that's the last portion. No one can make you mad without your permission.
There you go.
It's not other people's issues. You're fixing yourself, even if they hate you.
I like that. I would agree with that. No one can make you mad without your permission. They can sure make it hard to keep your self-control, but it's still a choice. Yeah.
I saw a post on social media just last night, I think, that kind of related to that. It was commenting on the relationship between Saul and David. And that from Saul's perspective, David was his enemy. Saul considered David his enemy and hated him. David did not consider Saul his enemy and didn't pay the hatred back. And said we need more Davids in the world. That even if somebody hates you and considers you their enemy, I'm not going to do. I can still choose not to make them my enemy. I can choose to not push the hatred back on them.
Yeah. So perspective. Yeah. A lot of wisdom on Facebook.
I won't tell you the other 99 posts I saw. They were horrible. It was fun.
Any other thoughts you had? Keep them, but go to John chapter 13, now the Gospel of John. Let's just bring in this, it's related. And he has kind of a second point under it. Why is brotherly kindness important? So the first from 1 John chapter 4 is, it's essential. It proves our love. The second one, sort of similar to it, it identifies us as Christ's disciples. If someone's there, John chapter 13, verses 34 and 35. Kenny, go ahead.
A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I love you, that you also love one another. By this all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another.
What's the context in which this is said? When does he say it? Where does he say it? Back up about a chapter, you'll see. It's the last pass, so it's in the upper room, guys. It's the Last Supper. It's the night in which he's betrayed. So this is like Jesus' final address to his apostles. What had Jesus just done earlier in this chapter? Wash their feet. That's probably coincidence that they start talking about love and don't have anything to do with each other, do they? I think maybe they do. And he says, this is a new command. Jesus is just making stuff up now? It's new? You didn't have to love people before, but now you got me. I think it's more just an extension or a reframing. In what way? So, here. Sorry. In what way are we to love one another? He tells us here.
Even as he is loved.
There we go. That's what I look at. Just as I have loved you. All right. How had Jesus loved them?
So,
What example? You just given them an example. What had he just done? Wash the feet, which was, what was the purpose of that? What was he trying to teach them with that? Serve each other. So I think that's kind of what he means. Part of it, at least. What else? I want to bring that to your attention, but I'm not saying that's the full answer.
In the context, he's talking about his death. I'm probably going to be a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Go with that.
So this is the one of the last chances I'm going to have to talk to you, and I'm going to choose to talk about this. So I want this to stick with you. Kind of like on your deathbed, or Paul writing his letter to 2 Timothy when he's like, I'm not going to be around much longer. This is you're my true son in the faith. I'm going to impart my final words of wisdom to you. So I'm probably not going to get another chance. What would you choose to say to someone if that was your last chance to talk to them?
I could be wrong in saying what Jason was just talking about, that he's about to go away and die, and I don't know, maybe this is more of a question. As I have loved you, is he the reason why this is new is he saying something along the lines of, I'm giving my life for you to save you. That's love. Obviously, John talks about that in other places as well. Is he telling them, give yourselves for each other? Make your lives about serving one another, washing each other's feet, putting each other first, which goes back to the brotherly kindness and taking care of each
Maybe. Be at least willing to.
other. Yeah.
That level, the depth, the extent to which. Jason.
I do think it's connected to that. I also want to point out, you brought up in washing their feet, tying back to the previous comment that I shared from social media. Whose feet did he wash? He washed his disciples. Which disciples?
Including Jews.
Including Judas. He just washed Judas's feet. And then it says what you do with it.
Yeah. Because we already knew. You know, he was washing Judas' feet. He already knew what Judas was going to do. I like how you brought out, the last thing. Jesus says 7 things on the cross. I forget what the order of them is. I think the last one says it was finished. But one of the last things he says is, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do. That's the kind of love we're supposed to imitate and try to approach. Are we going to get to that level? Probably not, but we're supposed to be trying. As I loved you. This next one, the next point he makes, which is the last one in this section of why is brotherly kindness important? He has 3 passages, so I'm going to get 3 volunteers. I need someone to turn to Colossians. Raise your hand away with me. Thank you. I'll tell you what verse and what chapter and verses in a second. Someone in 1 Corinthians 12. Thank you, Kevin. And 1 Peter 1. Al? Okay. So Colossians 2, you're going to read one verse in chapter 2 and one verse in chapter 3. The rest of you just got to listen and remember all this. Because I'm going to ask you a comment in a minute. The subheading or the point he's trying to make here is brotherly kindness binds believers together. It's the bond of perfection. So Colossians 2:2 and then 3:14, please.
Colossians 2:2, that their hearts may be encouraging, be knit together in love, and attaining to all riches of the full assurance of understanding to the knowledge of the mystery of God, both of the Father and of Christ. What was the second one?
3:14, please.
3:14. But above all these things put on love, which is the bond of perfection.
And then 1 Corinthians 12:24 through 26, Kevin. 24 through 26, please.
Which are more presentable parts not required, but God has so composed the body, giving greater honor to the parts that lack, there may be no division in the body, but that the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honored, all rejoice together.
Okay, and then Al, 1 Peter 1, verse 22, please.
Since you have purified your soul in obedience to the truth with sincere love of the brothers and sisters, fervently love one another from the heart.
Okay. I wouldn't say they're not all saying the same thing, but they're all kind of related to this idea of binding us together. So, what caught your attention that you'd like to bring up? I got a couple things. I'll throw it open to you first. What was your favorite of those 3, and what did you like about it? Ethan.
How it shows that we're all like not the same role, but we all have roles together. One person is suffering and the whole body is suffering. So, of course, that just puts it forward as an example in perspective that we're all doing this together.
Shoulder bones connected to the elbow bone. We're all connected, right? We're all parts of the same body. Have you ever hurt your hand and you limp? Oh, man. My legs aren't hurt. What am I limping for? But when part of your body hurts, it's like your whole body hurts. It's like the rest of your parts are kind of sympathizing with it. And that's kind of how we're connected. And like, kind of on the flip side of that, yes, we feel and share each other's pain, but we also share their joys. When things are going well for them, we're happy for them. So yeah, I like that idea of us being all parts of the same united whole, members of the same body. What else? There's one word I wanted to bring out that it didn't use. It used the word bind. I'm going to use the word glue. Love's like glue. It's what? Man, you get some good Gorilla Glue or something. That ain't coming apart, right? It's just stuck together. It would take an extraordinary amount of energy and will to try to pry them apart, right? That's the way we're supposed to be. Kind of like marriage, right? They've been cleaved, joined together. It would take violence to separate it. So it's kind of a permanent thing, right? It's something that we don't give up on, even if it's hard. We keep working at it. God's joined it together. What else? What other kinds? Yeah.
I'll just go back to the point where Jesus was washing their feet. Talking about that together is that he had just reprimanded him about talking about which one is the greatest. So in this fact that he was washing their feet, washing all the disciples' feet was not something that was going to be a little bit of time. That took a little bit of time. So he was trying to teach them humility and also help them understand things you're about to go through will be really hard, and you need to stick together. You need to love each other. You're going to have to hold each other up in times that are so hard. So at the point where he was washing feet, there probably was some really hard conversations going on between him and there. And when you think about washing someone's feet, that's a very dirty or degrading kind of thing.
Take some humility.
It does take humility, but it also, I know when I go see my sister, she has an asthma, so that's the first thing she asks me to do. She put my toenails on my shoulder, because she can't do it. And her husband doesn't want to do it. And for me, that's nothing. You know, that doesn't bother me in the least. But for some people, it's degrading. It's not a pleasant job. So, I don't know how people felt. I mean, it was a custom thing back then. It was something that they did very often.
But not someone above you wouldn't be doing it. Someone
That's right.
serving would be
That's
doing it.
right. So that whole issue of teaching humility and training him, it was not, you're not even better than anybody else. You're greater than greater. You gotta have to let each other.
They would have all acknowledged Jesus as the greatest among them. Jesus said, "You want to be the greatest? Here's what the greatest does. He serves." Like, ooh, that flipped that on its head, because that's not the way the Gentiles did it. That's not the way the Jewish leaders did it. I don't think the Pharisees were going around washing people's feet a whole lot. You don't see a lot of that sort of humility from them. 1 Peter 1 kind of brings, there's two words that my version uses at least that I want to bring out. Use the word sincere and earnest. And to me that just meant from the heart. Not skin deep, not surface, not pretend, not for show, but for real. That's the kind of love. We're not faking it. Is there a sense in which we fake it till we make it? Maybe. I mean, how are you going to learn? You do it. Even if you don't feel like doing it, you do it, because eventually you feel like doing it. Right? Keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. It's kind of, how do you build a habit? You do it even when you don't feel like it. Yeah.
Speaking to doing, love is demonstrated in action. I think it's so easy to say, "Oh, I love that person," and then we totally treat them without love. But then we say, "Oh, but I love them." Well, no. How do you know? Well, by the things you do. How does Jesus know our love for Him? By our obedience. So, love ultimately. I mean, it's not that there's not emotion in love. That's not what I'm saying. But if there's no action behind it, then it's empty, and there's no real love there. If there's no sacrifice, if there's no servitude, right? If there's no treating somebody with deference and putting their needs before your own, then is there really love, even though you say there is?
Liar, yeah. Actions speak louder than words. Jesus talks about how some people said all these great things, but then they didn't do anything about them. Apart from me. And then on the flip side, he says, "Everyone who did it for the least of these, my brethren, who did it to me." That's how we show our love. Kind of wrapping up this section on why is brotherly kindness important. We're about to move into how we obtain brotherly kindness, and that kind of flow from one to the other. But comments before we kind of transition to that, Jason?
I've just been looking about here, 1 Peter 1:22. That's really a complex verse. It just has a lot of other verbs and actions that are leading to something else, and I think our translations struggle with that. Again, the New American Standard says, since you have in obedience to the truth purified your souls for a sincere love of the brethren, fervently love one another from the heart. But when I'm looking at it, I mean, it starts out, so it's by obeying the truth, you purified your souls unto Philadelphia, brotherly love without hypocrisy. And then he gives a commandment at the end of that, from your hearts, love fervently. So it's like your obedience and the cleansing, and all of this is pushing towards brotherly love, towards love. You know, since you've already obeyed, since you've had it purified, this was to bring you into brotherly love. Now do it. Now love fervently without hypocrisy. It's an interesting structure.
To someone who knows Greek. To someone who knows Greek.
Just someone who knows Greek.
I don't catch all that.
They
But
tried
yeah,
to craft it that way in English.
Yeah.
Beth could do that. She's a good structure.
Other comments on why is it important? Because we're transitioning now into how do we obtain it, because it's important. We got to get it. Kyle and then Daniel.
You were talking about the verses that we read, so in Colossians 3:14, before that it said, put on tender mercy, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, bearing with one another, and forgiving one another if anyone has a complaint against another, even as Christ forgave you, so also you must do. But above all these things, put on love. If you're going to start somewhere, somebody says, what do I need to work on? Love. That's where you need to start. That's all the verses we can read this morning point to love, love, love. If you start there, it'll help us with all these other things.
I didn't have us turn there, but one of the passages I skipped over was Galatians 5, verse 14, 15, where he just reminds people that love your neighbor as yourself. Which Jesus asks, what's the greatest commandment? Yeah, he goes and love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, your strength. But he doesn't leave it there. And the second is like unto it, love your neighbor as yourself. He's like, they're a pair. They go together. And he will read this.
So God loves us. He gave his son. So we would reciprocate love to God. But how would you measure that? The only way you can measure it, not by, I'm going to live in a cave and I'm going to fast 3 times a week or 5 times a week or how many ever. That doesn't necessarily measure your love for God. You might be just, I'm going to debase myself so that I'll look holy. The way you measure that is by loving your brothers.
I would agree with that, and I was, I think I found it.
That's what Jesus said.
Yeah,
When
no,
I was hungry, you gave me food.
Yeah.
When I was thirsty.
That's how we demonstrate it, by our love for the others. And also, since God's love sacrificed, he sent his son to die for us. Romans 12, verse 1, we're supposed to be a living sacrifice. We sacrifice in return, and the way we do that is by what we do for brethren. Good. All right. If you got other comments, keep them. It's not like we've moved on, you can't get a chance. But I do want to go to 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 as we kind of transition into this. How do we obtain brotherly kindness? So 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. I'm going to read verses 9 and 10. I'll do that this time. Paul says, now concerning brotherly love, you have no need for anyone to write to you, for you yourselves have been taught by God to love one another. For that indeed is what you are doing to all the brothers throughout Macedonia. But we urge you, brothers, to do this more and more. Goes on and says some other things, but so how do we obtain it? Well, at least one way to answer that is what he says here, which is, how do we obtain brotherly kindness? Where do we get it from? Yeah, we've been taught by God. And by the way, I find it very interesting that he says twice, I didn't go back, but the first verse of chapter 4 here, and then again here verses 9 and 10, he twice says, I don't really need to tell you this because you're already doing it. But keep doing it more and more. He says that twice. If you go back to verse 1, just as you are doing, that you do so more and more. And then here he says, this and that indeed is what you're doing to all the brothers, and you don't have to write. No need for anyone to write to you. But do this more and more. So he feels like even when someone's doing a good job with it, it's still important to remind them to keep it up. Don't rest on your laurels or think you got it. No, keep doing it. More. More. You can't do it too much, I think is the idea. You're not going to love too much. Well, hold on there a little bit. You're going overboard. Nope. I don't think we're in a much more risk of the other extreme than that. Other comments that you noticed or want to bring out here from
It's
first
nice to build on that. I think that's such a good point because I think we sometimes feel like, well, I show love towards the brethren. I do my service. There's things that I show, and he says, could you do more? Is there something else you can do for your brother? It's not a question of, well, you're not doing anything for your brothers and sisters. You're not showing any love. It's, can you show more? Can you do more?
Wow. I've got a couple, I want to use Jesus as an example in a minute and read two passages from the Gospels. So, if you've got something before that, do it now, otherwise we'll bring those in also. You need two volunteers, Matthew 9. Someone wave at me. Matthew 9, thank you. And Luke 23, I'll tell you the verse in a minute. Luke 23. Will. All right, Matthew 9, we're going to read verses 35 and 36, please.
Then Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion for them, because they were weary and scattered, like sheep having no shepherd.
Luke 23:34, Will. Short one.
And Jesus said, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do.
I referenced that, I want to bring it to our attention again. So this is the example Jesus is just giving a picture. That's part of the reason why Jesus showed them the Father. By not someone, how can we love our brother who we have seen if I'm misquoting it, but how can we love God whom we have not seen if we don't even love our brother whom we have seen? Well, we've seen Jesus, and Jesus said, I've showed you the Father. This is what the Father is like. And so, this illustration in Matthew 9, I liked, particularly the word compassion. What does that word mean to you? How would you define compassion? What are the attributes of a compassionate person? Jesus or others?
I'd say like a deep feeling of sorrow for someone, or a deep feeling for someone.
Okay.
Something.
There's an emotion or feeling. I think there's probably a little bit more to it than just that, but that's part of it. Yeah. What else?
The definition of compassion is sympathy, pity, concern for the suffering or misfortune of others.
We care about what others are going through, and we want to do something about it, so it's going to drive us to action. You just have compassion on them and say, man, I really hope they get some food and things will work out for them. He did something about it, right? Whether it's feeding the 5,000 or healing the sick, or now he had some ability to do some things we can't do. But what are things we can do? Who do we tend to think of as compassionate people? Like what occupations do they go into?
Being a doctor.
Nursing. The thing to think of nurses, if a nurse is not compassionate, they're probably not a very good nurse. I would make a horrible nurse, by the way. I'm just telling you. I hope you never have me at your.
That's why you're a math teacher.
That's right. My Clinton's quick, analytical. My number one prescription for people is suck it up. Quit being a baby. I My wife's back was bothering her, so I did heat her heat packs up for this morning. So. But that's pretty good for me. Do you know why? I had to look this up. Do you know why? Well, what do we call the people that doctors and nurses take care of?
Patience.
Patients. Does anybody know why?
Because you need patience.
It's not. That's not it. That's not it. That's what I would have thought too, but it's not it. It actually doesn't come from Greek. It comes from Latin. The Latin word patience, or patient, means suffering or enduring. So that's people you're taking care of is because they're suffering. They're enduring something. You help them out with that. That's kind of the idea of compassion, I thought. So how do we obtain brotherly kindness? Well, look to our example, Jesus, and other examples. I mean, you probably are familiar with some people that you feel like that's a really compassionate person. Like, I want to be like them. They do a really good job at that, way better than I do. Probably some older people who probably had to learn it and maybe weren't so good at it when they were younger, but they figured it out. So it's something I think that can be acquired and learned. Other comments on this, how do we obtain brotherly kindness? We only got a few minutes, so this is your chance. Otherwise, go wait till Wednesday. We didn't bring that out, but okay. So explain a little bit more. She should pray out. What were you going to say to add to that?
Yeah, just following up, like, I think a big part of compassion is listening and really hearing. It's okay to understand somebody even if you disagree with them. It's okay to understand where somebody's coming from even if they're doing something wrong. And I think that's a big part of, James 1 talks about be quick to hear and slow to speak, slow to wrath. And I mean, are we actually like love listens, and we need to seek to understand before we seek to be understood. And so I think that's just so big. Sometimes at least I have struggled thinking, if I take the time to really listen compassionately, then that's like I'm giving them permission to be this way or that way. But it's not.
No.
You can do that and still lovingly disagree with what they're doing.
This is why I love teaching Bible class, because I learned so much. But everything else you're going to have to remember until Wednesday, guys. We got to quit. So thank you for participating this morning.